Another major talking point in the New Year message of President Bola Tinubu is his clarion call to citizens to love their country unconditionally, stressing that achieving the national goal of a better future requires them to be better citizens and uncompromising in their devotion and allegiance to the country. To achieve this, the president said he plans to unveil the National Values Charter in the first quarter of 2025 and launch an ambitious national orientation campaign that will foster patriotism and engender public trust in the policies of the government. And to help us make sense of the president's drive for national value reorientation, we have now in the studio with us lawyer and Arise News analyst Frank Tietie. Frank, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
And thanks for being here. You are second guest on Newsnight 2025. We've heard the president's speech, the call for Nigerians to love their country unconditionally. But this sentiment, how can it truly flourish without sort of tangible government accountability and transparency? And he also noted that as well. What are your thoughts?
The proof of the pudding is in the eating, and it starts with the government officials taking themselves seriously, government officials, public servants, civil servants taking the president very seriously, because many other times there is this disconnection between what is a policy statement, which the president's statement is, whether it's a budget statement. A budget statement by the president is actually akin to a law, because when it eventually passed by the National Assembly. But whenever the president speaks, that is, it has the force of an administrative regulation, which will guide all forms of policy implementation across all levels of government. So what is expected is that first, those who are in government, from the highest to the lowest public servant, should take themselves seriously because we're in government, and then people can now take them seriously. But as it seems, government seems as if it's most times ordinary propaganda. That is, let's say what we're supposed to say, and then let's in order to respond to our detractors, to our critics, and then let's do what we want to do because it's our time in government. So until that changes, and that long-term mentality among political office holders and then public servants is that let's build a greater country. Unless that becomes transparent and clear to all, I think it will just be a puff.
Well, the president says, look, these planned National Values Charter aims to promote ethical principles and unity, right? As a legal expert, tell us, what role do you think the law and justice system plays in reinforcing these values?
Interestingly, Section 23 of the Constitution, these values we are talking about. I wonder where I was going to talk. Well, perhaps if we've never seen the charter. When it comes, perhaps it will be talking in detail with regards to implementation with a reorientation of the National Orientation Agency, perhaps something like that. If not, Section 23 of the Constitution already itemizes what should form our ethical values in this country. It's a constitutional matter. Imagine. So since 1999, probably from 1979 to date, government hasn't seen it fit to really drive those ethical values. Talking about dignity of labor, respect for the religious tolerance. Many of those provisions under Section 23, and in fact, patriotism ranks as one of the highest, and then self-reliance. Many of them that are listed there in Section 23. So we have spent a lot of time, a long time, in disregarding these values. So it's good that the president is bringing this up. The president knows that this is really a big problem. We talk down too much on this country. We make fun, and it's so sad that skit makers, take delight in talking down on this country, and then we make some kind of stock in trade from talking down on the country. And again, another group of persons that talk down on this country so badly and so painfully are diasporans, who just don't see anything good happening in this country. Whereas we ought to create that impression of deep-seated loyalty to our motherland. But we don't do that, our fatherland, I would say. But we don't do that. So I think it's a good thing that the president is leading the way. Hopefully, I believe that when the charter comes, there should be some consequences for unnecessarily, talking down on this country. When you make national security related jokes, you should not, there should be some consequences. We cannot just be playing with everything. Yeah, I mean, the Americans don't do that with all their liberal, democracy that they practice. They don't do that. They don't come talk down on the American flag or talk down on the American national anthem. But in Nigeria, it's sad. So we're looking forward to a situation where we will, trace our historical roots to that point where every Nigerian will begin to take pride of being Nigerian, no matter how badly it is governed, because it is only one land for now to which we can claim, originality.
Well, when that national value charter comes up, we'll have more details and we'll talk about how the implementation will be. But let's talk about the president's focus on this youth confab, right? Emphasizing inclusivity and nation building. In your own view, in your analysis, how can this government ensure that this initiative is not just symbolic, but delivers good outcomes for Nigerian youth? Because this is not the first time we're hearing this.
Yeah, it's a good question you're asking, because we're used to high-sounding, initiatives like the 2014 National Confab that could have actually transformed our polity and then calmed a lot of frayed nerves that are actually tearing at the seams of this federation. But it was just cosmetic, right? And we also hope that it is not that kind of strategy to just simply diffuse tension. But if we give the benefit of doubt to the president that he means well, and in that case there is a youth confab, then it's a very, very good move, in the sense that you find that the country doesn't belong to the likes of our president, who've actually lived a good life, and then in their maturity of age, they are now, what is expected is that they should be giving back. Now, the future of this country belongs to the young people and those who are unborn. So it is expected that, because they're quite hopeless, and that's the reason why they find much hope in degraded standard of living, I would say, degraded self-esteem, trying to go abroad, whereas they can build their country. So let's hope that this can reduce the Japa syndrome, in quotes, where they can now come and give a sense of what they expect of this country. So let's have a confabulation of young people. What are their why are they disgruntled? Why are they losing hope in this country? But we will find that there are many young persons who have, solutions to governance problems, governance issues, and then we hear them, and then to also know that they can shape the future. I think this is a very, whoever participated, and I think the Federal Executive Council must have done something in that regard. It shows that they are feeling the heat. That the young people of Nigeria, when you go to the social media, seem to have completely lost hope about the future of this country. But it's not so. So I think it's a problem of communication. Let's hope that the government will be doing more of listening in the confabulation and not trying to, set agenda and saying that in the way they had it in National Confab of 2014, the no-go areas. No, the young people should be able to talk about everything. Talk about their future, talk about job creation, talk about their disillusionment about the way governance operates, and talk about the fact that there are not many, opportunities for them because of the way the environment is, irrespective of whatever the problems are. And the truth about it is that wherever problems are in history, there are only opportunities for young people to either be inventors, or either to be social crusaders, either to be social engineers, or whatever, to find solution. Yes, because but when you're denying them that opportunity, when you don't give them, a shot at governance, considering that it is nearly impossible for a young Nigerian to take part in electionary campaign.
There's one part of the president's message this whole new year, with governors visiting him in his Lagos residence, that I want us to talk about. He was talking about a push for governors to embrace these tax reforms, right? From your perspective, how can we balance, obviously, the need for governments to increase its revenue and also the public's mistrust of how these taxes are actually being utilized?
Oh, it's a big problem. The big problem is that the mentality of the average Nigerian is that the government official, rightly or wrongly, the government official exists for himself alone. So you're increasing taxes for what? To subsidize the luxurious lifestyle of directors in the federal ministries and agencies who constantly drive big SUVs, big black SUVs that are fuel guzzlers, irrespective of the fact that there is subsidies have been removed from fuel, but you see them driving around with 4 or 5 SUVs. So how do you tell the average Nigerian that you are trying to carry out some form of tax reforms or economic reforms to increase the government revenue in order to to improve social services to them? Nigerians don't have the hope in sight that the tens of millions housing deficit that government is supposed to provide the enabling environment for Nigerians to have quality housing. It will be provided. Actually, when government has money, when a lot of money, the expectation is that social services will increase and improve. In that case, we could even have as much as an El Dorado in terms of having social security for those who can't work anymore, for the elderly being paid, and for those who don't have job to be paid in this country. But Nigerians will hardly believe that. That's the reason why I'm hoping that the mention of taking another look at national orientation, government needs to tell Nigerians, and then there should be greater transparency. Tell us how much. Let's expect that we should hold weekly or monthly town halls and say, look, this is what we got from the sale of crude oil, this is what we got from the taxes, and we're putting such and such amount of money for this road, and then we're ensuring that such housing project is completed and number of jobs will be created and all of that. And such kind of transparency will restore that kind of confidence. And
even more importantly, even after telling us, oh, this is what we're going to do, we're putting this money towards housing, we have to see that down the line, 3 months later, 6 months, 8 months, 1 year later, we are actually seeing the tangible results. And I just wanted to ask you, before I let you go, do you agree with the president when he's assuring Nigerians that, look, your sacrifices over this past 19 months will not be in vain?
I think so. I believe the president. The reason I do is that in Nigeria, the Nigeria that I know, the Nigeria that I've grown up in, when prices of things go up, they hardly come down. But in this administration, I've seen that the price of PMS went up in such an astronomical and, in an inscrutable manner. And we all screamed to high heavens. We thought we couldn't survive. But if it came down even with a fraction of a naira, it's such a positive note. So I think I want to. This is a new year. So and the president is coming out with making promises. We now want to asking us, begging us to believe him, which we should, because why would the president lie? The president will his presidential state. Every word, if it were President Reagan that makes a presidential speech on New Year Day, every single word. In fact, the punctuations will be studied for the purpose of knowing what government will do. So why would the president make a statement and Nigerians will presume that the president is not telling the truth? So we give the president the benefit of that. We believe that, yes, if we have made sacrifices, if the price of PMS ever came down in course of his administration, one way or the other, I think some ray of good hope in the future. Let's see what can happen.
It's the first day of the year. We need this hope.
Yes,
my other guest, Professor Waleke, actually mentioned something. He said, look, this is the first time during this Yuletide period that there was no patrol queues, at least in Abuja.
We understand why.
At least in Abuja.
We understand. It's simple. You see, we knew the problems that were associated with this subsidy regime. We knew it was all about smuggling. It was all about inflation. It was all about, a whole lot of things going on. Hoarding and all of that. Now we're paying proper price for PMS. Yes, it's going to be available. After all, we've seen resurgence
and we've had multiple issues throughout 2024, and we've had so many multiple times that we were on the queue. So I think Nigerians deserve a break.
I agree with that. So we have a lot of instances of bad governance in 2024. There's no doubt about that. But on the ray of hope, and I'll start on a new note. Say, look, if you're saying that, look, this thing will not be, let's believe the president. I want to believe the president. But if it turns out after 6 months that it's all a facade, then we'll also cry to the high heavens that, Mr. President, you cannot, at your age, tell us a lie.
Thank you so much, Frank Tietie, lawyer and a Rise News analyst, for joining me on our first news night of 2025.